All right, guys, a lot of people were asking me, why do I have a regulator and a pressure switch? Now, this is what my pressure switch looks like. Some people have a pro switch that runs off the full voltage of the pump. I have micro switches. Everything you see here basically runs on low voltage wires. Okay, there's no heavy duty wires in here. All this sends signals to another box that I have that triggers relays, and all that takes the heavy loads, okay? But the reason why, now some booster pumps like 5 gallon a minute or 7 gallon a minute you might get away with, but this is a 2 horsepower, 240 volt pump, 10 gallons a minute, all right? You have to have a pressure switch and a bypass, or at least just a bypass. But I like to run a pressure switch because if you let this thing bypass more than 5 minutes, it will explode. Believe me, I know that for a fact. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit here. We're going to turn the pump on, and we're going to spray this. Okay? This really puts up the volume, okay? But now you're going to look. I'm shooting out at 150 PSI. I let up the gun, it shuts off at 200. Now it comes on at like 125. That's because I have this special switch here. If you notice, the bottom ring is set for 125. The top ring is set for like almost 200. Okay, I spent a lot of time trying to find one of these switches that come from Germany, and it is an adjustable high and low limit, low voltage switch. And of course the thing on the bottom is a gauge isolator that doesn't allow the SH or any chemicals to touch this expensive switch. I mean, this switch and wire is like 300 bucks, but if you could dial it in, it's very easy. It works flawlessly. Now, like I said, let's pull the trigger. I'm gonna do it slow. See it comes on. Now if you listen to the pump, let up the trigger, shuts right off. Pull the trigger, comes right on. Runs beautifully. All right. Now you're asking about the bypass. Now you got to remember, this here is a full flow gun. I'm running it through the cam lock and then my hose. This is just a 50-foot jumper hose just for this, but this is the type of hose that I run. A 5/8 Keritech 1156. Of course, I have the custom-made crimps. We have that crimping tool that we keep on board. That's in another video. Now, when you run this, there's really no back pressure. When you hit it, it runs at about 150 because all the volume and pressure is being exhausted out of the large hose and the large volume gun, right? Now, if you go ahead and move to a small gun like this, like if we're going to do fences or some delicate work where you want a small nozzle or a shooter tip, this is going to back the pressure and the volume up dramatically. And what happens is it's going to build up almost 200 PSI because this pump here is a beast, okay? And your switch is going to keep triggering on and off. It doesn't matter if you have a pro switch or a switch I have. That's why some guys say that their pro switch jumps back and forth or toggles back and forth violently when they switch to a different tip or a longer hose, or if we go to a, even if I use this gun here and we go into a lift that's 100 foot high, remember the volume and the pressure builds as you go higher, okay? If I take this gun here that I just shot, put on a lift over 100 foot tall, it will max out at 200 and shut the pump off, and the pump will trigger on and off, and it will overheat the pump. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second. Put this camera down. All right, we're going to swap the gun out. Now you got to remember, during that test, my regulator has been turned all the way down so we get full pressure, okay? Now I'm going to take this. Let me turn the valve on. All right, see this pattern here? Now watch. We're going to spray it. See how it's cycling? And that's going to overheat the starters, overheat the motor. That's because it builds up too much pressure trying to blow it out of these small fittings here. So that's why we have to back off on our loader. I mean, I'm just turning it like a turn, right? Let's see it now. See? This is the way it's supposed to be working. If you listen, you can hear the water bypass. You can hear it. Now let's turn the unloader up one turn again. Okay? Not even a turn. Let's see what happens. See how it cycles? That will happen with a Pro switch as well. Like I said, when you get to the larger pumps, that's what's going to happen. So you're going to back it off, but 3/4 of a turn. See how we're running now? Got to remember, with that big soaker gun, we were only getting 150 PSI. Now we're getting like 175, 180. Because we're throttling it down, we're choking the water and the pressure down. That's why you have to have a bypass and a pressure switch. If you're going to run a big gun like this, no need for a pressure switch, no need for a bypass. If you're going to strictly run a soaking gun, you can just run it on a switch. You don't have to have a bypass. But I use this to applicate. Like I said, this is nice. You got to do a fence. You got to do some detailed work around the, around the front entranceway where there's a door. You don't get all over. It works great. But that's why you have to have your bypass and the pressure switch together. All right? So that answers a lot of guys' questions. Why do I run a bypass if I have a pressure switch and vice versa? If you notice there's two pumps here, it's because I run a redundancy, just like I run two pressure washers. It's a backup. You're on a large job, it blows, takes me 33 minutes. Plug a new one in, pull this cam lock off, switch it to the other one, take my pressure switch here, switch it over, 3 minutes, and I'm back working. Get to the shop, take this front one off, which is easier, repair it, put it back on. All right, guys, I hope this helps you out. That's the reason why we have a bypass and a pressure switch. Keep on spraying, guys.